Grand Pixel Man says, what are your most favourite tanks and planes? Doesn't have to be something in War Thunder. Love your vids. Thank you. And also Steve, the RC King. What is your favourite vehicle of World War II, and why is your voice so awesome? I don't know, Steve, you tell me. So, when it comes to favourite tanks and planes, tanks it's quite hard, so we'll go on planes first. When I was a wee lad in Yorkshire, there was a museum near me, in a town which I was near, which actually had a Wellington in it. And we used to go into the town and shop, you know, get a bus in with my mum and my sisters, and then we used to, you know, go out on the bus, and every so often we'd visit the small museum. The main attraction was the Wellington, and there was a few outhouses which had different things, and back then it just felt huge. But I went back, when I went back to England maybe about 3 years ago now, and everything was so much smaller, which isn't a surprise. I mean, I've grown taller. And there was a Wellington, so that sparked my interest in bombers when it came to the British Royal Air Force. And being from Yorkshire as well, there is a deep history of bombing in Yorkshire, because if there's a book called Yorkshire Airfields of the Second World War, and it basically goes through each of the airfields and talks about the experiences of what the crew had on it. I actually have 2 copies of it because I bought it in England, and I bought it maybe the time when I went on holiday back to England for maybe a few weeks before I had to start school again, and I bloody left it in England. And I said to my dad, look, could you send me this book? Because I'd finished it and I was reading through it again, but I found it interesting. I think it would have been good for the channel, and I have actually done a video on it, but maybe I'll do a few more readings from it later on. But he couldn't find it, even though I know exactly where it was. I even got him on Skype once and tried to show him in the house where it was, and it turned out one of my sisters had moved it. So yeah, sorry Dad. And so, from there, what I did was I bought another copy on Amazon. And that copy is sat on the bookshelf right next to me, with probably about 100 other books of various different types, whether work-related or World War II related. But anyway, that's where my interest for RAF bombers came from, and then I started reading about, obviously, the Lancaster, the Stirling, the Halifax, the Whitley, all of these, the Sunderland, Manchester, all of these. And the one which I always thought was the one which kind of got the short end of the stick was the Halifax. And for you Americans out there, maybe the B-24 is probably the best example of you know, what happened. So everybody knows the B-17, even just a random person on the street will be able to tell you what a B-17 is, but nobody has an idea what a B-24 is. In Britain it's exactly the same. Everyone knows what a Lancaster is, but nobody knows what a Halifax is, a Handley Page Halifax. And the Halifax is the grunt that did the majority of the work. If you actually look at the amount of Halifaxes that were produced, I'm just going to check this just now so I'm not talking out my ass. But basically, Handley Page. There we go. There's the Halifax. So there was 6,176 Halifaxes produced. And then if we look at the Avro Lancaster, there was 7,377. So it's actually pretty similar in the amount that were actually produced. But nobody ever hears about the Halifax. Everybody always hears about the Lancaster. So even though more were produced, it's, I believe, I want to get this right. I'm sorry. I've got to make sure that I get it right. Otherwise, I look like an absolute numpty. This is what you get from doing live stuff. But here we go. Let's just have a look. But basically, the Halifax was a workhorse of the British bomber command, and so was the Lancaster. But the Halifax was around for a very long time, and so was the Lancaster. And there is actually a Halifax in Canada, which is kind of interesting. Or at least I believe they used to be. I'm not sure if it's here anymore. It's in the Bomber Command Museum, I believe. But the RCAF, the Royal Canadian Air Force, actually got a few of them. But this was a bomber which, when I read about in the Yorkshire Airfields book, and also in many other books, the crews talk quite highly of it, and basically, you know, how it worked, and the fact that they had to do so many sorties in it, and they thought it was okay. It was pretty good at night bombing. It could carry a decent load. It was generally kind of comfortable, apart from the tail gunner and all that stuff. Did have a tendency to catch on fire, but then again, it seems like every British bomber had that issue. So this was the Halifax was a bomber that was used a lot in Yorkshire, and therefore I read a hell of a lot about it when I was younger. And it is one of the planes that is probably my favourite when it comes to bombing in World War II, and the plane which, you know, because I'm mainly focused on bombers, I think is probably one of my favourites in history. But it never gets mentioned in anything. Everyone always talks about the Lancaster, and then we go on to one of my favourite aircraft, which is the Hurricane. In my honest opinion, after reading as much as I have about the Battle of Britain, I honestly believe that the Spitfire, even though it was a superior aircraft and, you know, everyone has wonderful things to say about it, the Hurricane was the backbone of the success of the Battle of Britain. And this is echoed by Hugh Dowding in a lot of biographies that I've read about him, and his general thoughts on the matter. It's echoed by a lot of the pilots that were around in World War II, where, yes, the Spitfire was very good, but there was more Hurricanes, and they were able to do a lot of work as well. But they generally don't get a mention, because everybody knows about the Spitfire, same with the Lancaster and Halifax. So therefore, for me personally, the Hurricane is my favourite, mainly because of the Battle of Britain. After the Battle of Britain, yeah, it was kind of useless and everything, and everybody shook their hand into the Spitfire and made it really good. But the fact that the Battle of Britain was won by the British, and we were able to stave off the German threat, was probably the first real turning point of the war. So, for me, that means that the Hurricane is put very highly in my books of a brilliant plane, and something that has to be admired. So, yeah, they're my two choices for aircraft. As you can see, I kind of like the ones which don't really get mentioned, but did a lot of work, very much like the B-24 as well, and some other aircraft, even the P-47. Once again, everyone knows about the P-51, but what about the 47? You know, people don't know about these things, but I don't blame them. You don't really get taught it that much in school. When it comes to tanks, it's a bit more dodgy. I don't really have a favourite tank. If I'm looking back on my childhood and stuff, one of the films I really enjoyed was the Battle of the Bulge, and to represent King Tigers, they had Patton 2s, and to represent Shermans, or whatever they were supposed to be on the Allied side, they had Chaffies. And I always thought the Patton 2 was a really nice looking tank. Just the turret of it was definitely a step in the futuristic direction of turret design, and it just overall looked like a really cool tank to me when I was a small child. And still does today. I think it's a really nice looking tank, but I generally haven't put that much thought into it. When it comes to tanks, there aren't many British tanks I think are particularly interesting. I pretty much enjoy ripping British tanks apart just because they had so many issues and were just kind of ridiculous. But yeah, simple as that. Just wait 2 seconds. Okay. Sorry, I just uploaded the the Churchill video, and I'm just seeing some of the comments pop in. I've gotta make sure that I haven't screwed up anything in the video before I keep doing this. So yeah, that's my tank one. If I was going to say something else, it's probably, I don't know. I mean, the IS one's pretty cool. It gets kind of a bad rap for what it was. The Valiant was really cool because it was so bad. That's really about it. I don't really have a favourite tank, but if I was pressed, it would probably be the Patton 2. Moving on, this is Aubrey Kun, who has commented on many of my videos from days gone by. Always enjoyed your comments, mate, if you're watching this. What factored into your decisions to structure your channel the way it is? Additional thoughts behind the question. Some people resort to clickbait, some do just gameplay live or with play-by-plays after the fact, some do clip shows of their moments, and others do music videos. But you've taken more of an analytical approach to most of your videos, especially the War Thunder ones, but not exclusively. I admit I mostly come here for the War Thunder content though. Personally, I really like it, and I think the length of the videos you do and the amount of detail you go over tends to be just perfect for the subjects. Even if it's less likely there will be people flocking to watch a full in-depth examination of something. I think it's good that you do that quality content. So thank you, Aubrey Kun. And also, I completely agree with you. Generally, people don't flock towards the long form content just because either they have stuff to do in the day or they just want to see some cool highlights. And there would be literally no point in me doing that, because everybody else is doing it. I think when it comes to the market of War Thunder videos, there's something for everyone. So when it comes to, you know, I wouldn't really call it clickbaity, but, you know, interesting videos, which, you know, there's a lot of excitement, a lot of going on. I mean, you've got people like Fly Daily, who I think does a really good job of doing stuff like that. You also have, just having a look at some people. He's called like the Armenian dude. I can't remember his name. I'm gonna have to find it. Let's have a look. Are you really not gonna show up? Maybe if I go and watch it again. Maybe there'll be something there. But then you've got people like Many Miles Away, which does his own form of content. The Orange Doom, which I still can't pinpoint where his accent's from. It's very interesting. Then you've got, you know, there's... Oh, there we go. The Iron Armenian, aka GI Hags, does some really interesting kind of music highlight videos. Squire obviously does some very interesting scripted content, which I think is great. Mike Goes Boom is the guy I was trying to think of, and also Origin and people like that. So yeah, there's, you know, there's basically something for everyone. There's also a guy called Tiger Cat, I think. And he does pretty much like up-to-date news, I think would be the way I'd describe it, and then also some War Thunder gameplay and some live stuff. That stuff has never really appealed to me. When it comes to live content, I don't really feel that enthused by it. I like to have my thoughts kind of sorted out before I turn on the recorder, and being able to commentate over a game while playing it I find very hard to do. It's just when I did some of my really early videos like 3 years ago now, I tried to do reviews while playing the game, while showing off the vehicles, and I found that incredibly hard to do, which is why I changed to the longer form, more in-depth stuff, where I could get my thoughts more sorted out. I also, every time I make a video, which is based around some kind of topic, or some kind of mechanic, or some kind of idea, I always have a notepad, and it's, you know, full of bullet points that I can go through, and I think that works really well. It's an idea that I got from a guy called Thorin, who does esports content, and does this much more long-form thinking about stuff, even philosophically, or, you know, how a certain player is going to affect a game, or, you know, the history of a certain player. And he talked about his method of how to go through these videos, and I've tried to adapt that to how I think in the last few months or so, and I think that's helped me quite a lot. But even over the last year or two, I still did the notepad thing. I still prefer doing stuff where I'm not playing the game at the same time, because I find it really hard to concentrate on what I'm saying. I mean, even when even when I'm not playing the game and I am concentrating on what I'm saying, I still cock up. Like the classic one over the last week or so was the German video of the rare vehicles, where instead of saying 10-kilogram bombs, I said 10-kilometer bombs. I mean, I've no idea what the hell I'm on about, to be quite honest with you. Like, what the hell am I talking about? It's not, obviously, what the hell's a 10-kilometer bomb? And I still do it, like, every now and again in my videos, and I'm sure there'll be many times in this one I do the same thing. But I just prefer that style. I think it's a part of War Thunder which isn't explored that much, and when I look at people like RamJB and Crouching Walrus and some of the other guys who have kind of just stopped making War Thunder videos or just stopped making YouTube videos, generally that was what I found interesting, so I tried to just move on to it but put my own style on it and making it much more about how the game works and what we could do to just kind of improve it, instead of doing the highlight videos or music videos, because I'm just not very good at making them. It's as simple as that. I mean, if I put work into it, I could probably make them. I mean, generally, getting a bunch of highlights from my gameplay and then putting some music on it and, you know, big flashy explosions and stuff, I could probably do it pretty easily, but it's just not fun for me. I prefer just talking to a microphone and putting out some ideas and seeing what people say about it, because that is another thing that you don't get with those videos that I talked about before. You don't get the interaction, and I generally think I want to bounce ideas off people. I'd love to do some podcasts and discussions with other people, get their ideas, you know, bounce ideas, think about how to improve the game and stuff, but you can't do that on, you know, just a random live gameplay video or clip shows or anything like that. So that's why I do what I do. I mean, there's nothing else I can say about that. I hope that was a good answer. I'm not exactly sure. I could probably expand on it a bit more. I might do later on, but I think that's good enough for now. There's a bit of look into how the devil works. Minecraft CPF4 says, why don't you do live commentary? I do it sometimes. All my map analysis videos are live commentated, just because it's a lot easier for me before the fact to work out where I'm gonna go and then talk about those positions while I'm in them. If you talk about just doing random games and live commentating, I generally am not gonna do that. Sometimes I will. There have been some live ones I've done, such as like the Centurion grind, or talking about possible other tech trees, but generally it's just not something I can do because I find it very hard to concentrate on two things at once, which is why in those videos I generally play stuff which I can either talk about while I'm going. So in the Centurion grind I was talking about my thought processes and what I'm going to do and stuff. And then in the Italian tech tree, well, I just proposed tech trees and what we should go for, either French or Italian or maybe a mixed one. Well, I could just go in a bomber and not really worry about anything and still talk over it. So yeah, that's the main reason why. It'll be interesting to see if people want more live commentary stuff, but I generally stray away from it. There are many other YouTubers who do War Thunder who do the live commentary stuff, so if you'd like me to do it, you know, tell me, but generally I'm kind of against it. Streaming stuff, I've been asked quite a few times about that, which kind of moves into this as well. Kind of the same deal. First of all, I don't really have the time for it, and second of all, it would take away from the YouTube videos, which I enjoy doing a lot. Ferrari KPB, or Ferraric BP. What is your favourite plane / tank in War Thunder? My favourite plane to fly in War Thunder is probably the Hurricane Mark 1, or the BF-109E1. The Hurricane Mark 1 is kind of a guilty pleasure for me. If I've had a bad day in War Thunder, then I'll go back to it, and I'll just kind of have fun in it. It's probably my highest KDA plane. The BF109E1, I'm a big champion of it because I think it's probably the best, what would be the word? It's the best learner vehicle for a beginner to learn how to energy fight. And since that is a very key concept when you get to tier 3 and tier 4, I think, you know, it's the perfect vehicle for people to use. Now that they've added the Fleagle, which is what I think people have told me it's supposed to be pronounced like, maybe the Fleagle is what it is now. But the E1 is very fun to fly, and so is the Hurricane Mark 1. I generally don't really enjoy flying jets, so yeah, I stick to prop aircraft generally. And the last one. This is Ben Hooper with more of a comment than a question. Hello, love your videos, and talking to you in the comments. I wanted to warn you about gaining subs. Right now this channel has a really nice tight-knit community of fans and friends, but once you hit 3k, your videos will appear in the recommended bar on the right side of the screen, which, while can bring new people to your channel, can bring assholes knocking on your door too. I hope you find this useful, and I really wish you luck. Well, thank you, Ben. That's very kind of you. And it is a pretty tight-knit community here. People who have commented for months or years. I recognize all of the names, really. Even going back into, like, the comment history and stuff, you know, I can see who's commented on what and what they've said and things, and I really like that. There's nothing I can really do about gaining subs. If my content's good, then I'll gain subs, and that's gonna... if that brings assholes, that brings assholes. All I can say is bring it on, kind of thing. If they have legitimate criticism, even if it's just negative constructions or stuff like that, or negative encouragement, I can't remember exactly what the wording is, then that's completely fine in my book. I'm fine with that. Negative criticism, and that's what I mean, negative criticism. That's completely fine. You know, I'm very much say what you want. I'm never going to stop you saying it. Even if the YouTube filter tells you no, I will make sure to approve your comment for the greater good. And hopefully we get to a point where, you know, we can have like a Discord server for that tightly knit community. If they want to, you know, discuss stuff, not just in the comment sections, but also on Discord or TeamSpeak or in Steam groups. That will definitely be something I look towards doing in the future. But for now, I'm very happy with where the channel's at, and once it hits that 3k, which I'm pretty sure it'll do at some point, it's going to be interesting to see if this flood comes. It's going to be interesting to see how to deal with it, because generally I do take some controversial positions, or at least sometimes I play the devil's advocate because I think it's the right thing to do. One of the best videos, from my personal opinion, I've made in the last few months, which I'm really proud of, is that one talking about larger ships and the questions I have for if they're implemented and how to do it. Because once Fly made that video, you know, it was very much about, well, you know, you can market these ships, it'll bring a lot of people to the game, people know them, you know, it will, people will be interested in it. But when I look at it, I go, yeah, that's true, but how are these ships going to interact with tanks? Or are they? Or how many guns are these ships going to have? Are the patrol boats going to be able to get anywhere near them? Are aircraft going to be getting anywhere near them, since all these guns are going to be player controlled? Now, how is all of this going to work? Are we going to have a spawn system, like ground forces or mixed battles, where you get enough points and you get in a ship? What if we just have one person who's in a massive ship and he just decides to bombard the whole of the ground forces map? Then what do you do then? So yeah, I prefer those types of videos, and I understand that those types of videos can be kind of controversial because people want to know, you know, they want big ships. It seems to be a general community consensus thing, but I think it's very important every time a big change is made that we look at the other side of the coin as well, and that's what I'll always try and promote when looking especially at War Thunder, where we have had some very positive changes, but they've also come along with some negative aspects. The ATGMs is probably the best example that I can think of the last, you know, of the last while, where you have 80 gems. Obviously it's a new step in technology in War Thunder, it's a new thing to tier 5, but at the same time there's no counterplay to them, and we've just got smoke in the game now, so at least there's some kind of counterplay, but before there wasn't. But anyway, I hope this video answers all of your questions in a reasonably good manner, and I hope you all enjoyed them. If you do have any further questions, please let me know, and by the time this goes up, the second part will be on the Sunday. By Monday we will go back to normal programming, so that means that a video of either Men of War or Cessler's Heritage of Kings or Majesty, and then a War Thunder video as well, so going away from the 2 War Thunder videos a day. But anyway, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and once again, thank you so much for the 2,000 subscribers. It does mean a lot, and it's really nice to read all of your comments and everything. So, I'll see you next time.